Hello painting students, I hope everything's going well. And this demonstration is for your next assignment, which will be your final. You should have already done 4 little mini paintings that are roughly 5 inches by 7 inches of a bunch of photographs that I gave you where we practiced doing composition. And this one you're going to be on your own. And I want you guys to use a photograph that you have taken yourself. So it can't be something from off the internet. It can't be something you find in a magazine. It needs to be a snapshot of something that you want to paint. My advice is to stay away from people. People are going to be a bit harder to do than you think, etc. So anyways, this is a photograph that I took that I turned into a painting. You don't have to print it off. You can just use your phone as a reference if you want to. But I have this one printed off just for you guys. And when you get your photograph and you choose what you want to do, or maybe you have a number of them that you want to do, you need to figure out what the composition is. And what I'm requiring from you for this week, due April 26th, is 3 thumbnails. So let's quickly go over what a thumbnail is. So a thumbnail is like a miniature drawing of what you're going to be working on before you actually do it. This whole sketchbook I have here is just chock full of thumbnails. And basically it's just brainstorming and what you're doing. And sometimes, you know, you might make a thumbnail that does not look good. That is totally fine. You can just cross that out and still turn it in to get credit. But I've done a series of, well, let's see, that one wasn't a thumbnail, but you're just trying to figure out what it is that, how you're going to crop it, etc. You're problem solving. Anyways, I can sit and go on and on looking at thumbnails right over here. Some of them are done in ink, but majority of them are done in pencil, of just trying to figure out my values and what I want my focal point to be, etc. And just playing. That's all you're doing, is just playing, trying to figure it out. Let's see. Some of them are really scribbled values, like of these 2 people over here, etc. So anyways, I'll put that one away. All right, so here's my photograph I'm looking at. There's a multiple number of ways you guys can go about doing this. Sometimes, if I'm not sure where to start, I like to make 2 L-shaped pieces of paper, and I just move it around on my photograph and think about, okay, can that make a good composition? Or what if I stretched it out here? And your painting doesn't have to be a rectangle. You can turn it into a square if you want to, because I'm kind of liking this square look that's happening right here, that maybe I would want to paint that at some point. But I think what I settled on, see, maybe it was about right here. This is where I kind of cropped it off, and I pretended that the tree, I didn't cut it off by accident with the camera. Okay, so I figured that out. I can do it that way, or you can look at your image from life and figure out thumbnails. So I'm looking for a minimum, again, 3 thumbnails. And they're just little tiny studies. So as you're going along, looking at your picture, you're going to say to yourself, okay, what is my focal point? Where is it going to be placed on the paper? So in other words, what is your composition? So this particular one, my focal point was this very large tree. And I purposely put that large tree on that rule of thirds mark. And I'm also looking at an L-shaped composition where I have the grass and the tree hugging 2 sides of the picture plane. Okay, after that, what is your contrast? So looking at the tree, I want my highest contrast to be at that focal point. And I can use things that I already see naturally happening here. Like this really dark space in the tree is a really nice dark contrast to that sky. So I'm probably going to play along with that. This bush here is maybe a little bit too dark. I can lighten it up so it's not competing with that tree. Here is one little thumbnail I made trying to figure out the contrast. Do you know what? It does not look that good. That's okay. Move on to another one. Okay, so my contrast, I decided to use value. I could also use some texture or color to help with that contrast, like green and red, or really rough texture versus a very smooth texture. But I like to stick with value. Okay, after you figure out your contrast at your focal point, what is the movement you are using to lead your eye to that focal point? So I had this thumbnail done. This was my second thumbnail, and it wasn't quite what I was looking for. There's not much movement happening, maybe a little bit of rhythm. So I made another thumbnail, and this is where I started lying from the photograph that I was seeing. When I look at this grass, it doesn't really get dark right here. And I thought to myself, well, what if I intentionally darken the grass just a little bit so it kind of curves and it helps lead my eye to the focal point. So it's almost like making an S shape leading there. That started to work. And so I made this thumbnail to help with the movement. After that, think about your edges. Where are your sharp edges? Where do you want your soft edges? I put in this painting a lot of sharp edges in the focal point. And this ground I've kind of softened up. I made it less textured and less detailed than what I had over here. And then last but not least, think about, do you have patterns of light and dark? So you just don't want to have a black dark area, a light white area, that there's an irregular pattern happening where it goes light, dark, etc. Humans love looking at things in patterns. So this is the final thumbnail that I stuck with, and I was using it as a reference as I started to paint. Anyways, so again, 3 thumbnails minimum that you will photograph and show to me. I would also like to have a photograph of the image that you're looking at so I can look at it too. And so anyways, this painting that you guys are going to be making is not going to be due until May 3rd. So you got a good 2 weeks to work on it. And size-wise, you can choose to do a half sheet of paper, of watercolor paper, or you can use a full sheet. So I'm just going to grab this board of watercolor here. So this paper right here is a half sheet of watercolor paper I just tore in half. If you want to do a full sheet of watercolor paper, you're welcome to do a full sheet too. But again, remember, you don't have to do a rectangle. You can turn this into a square if you want to, or a circle, you know, whatever seems right. But size-wise, this is what I'm looking for. In the future, I'll be doing another demo of just how I come up with my own painting. And I've got a series of examples that I think I will show online of creating those thumbnails and how I came to my final painting, if you want to see them. All right, have a good one.